Hi everyone, hopefully you can all now see and hear me. My first time using Proudcast as a speaker, so hopefully it'll go well. Thanks everyone for joining, wherever you are in lots of different parts of the world. I can see from the chat. Yeah, I had a little bit of housekeeping I've been asked to do to begin with. If you do want to chat, there's a box at the bottom. Similarly, if you want to ask a question, there's an option for that as well. I will try and get to questions at the end. I'm going to try and run through quite a lot of stuff in the presentation to try and leave a bit of time for questions. And this recording will also be available at this link again at the end. So if you miss anything or want to take another look through, you can visit that when you do. We've also got a poll going just to ask if you used Overleaf before. It's usually handy just to sort of get a feel for how many people have heard of Overleaf or used it. And it's pretty evenly split at the minute. Half you have used Overleaf, half you haven't. So that makes my job, I guess, easier in the sense that I can cover everything, but harder in that I'm going to have a lot to fit in. I think that is about it because we've only got 20 minutes. I'm going to dive straight in and start sharing my screen. And so hopefully you will all now be able to see my slides. Yes, hopefully you can. Don't know if someone wants to say yes in the chat, if you can see my slides. Oh, I can see them now. So that looks good. Right. So yeah, I'm John Hammersley. I'm one of the two founders of Overleaf. There was another John Lee's Miller. We started about 8 years ago now. I'll talk a little bit about the product today, a little bit about how we work with publishers and institutions, and give you a bit of a flavor of the different things you can do with Overleaf. Like I said, I'll try and leave a bit of time for questions at the end, but if not, I've also got my email address on the last slide, so you can follow up by email if you'd like to do that. So why did Overleaf come about? Well, I think in part because we are becoming more collaborative as in the science and research community and academic authorship in general. So there's been a number of studies of these. I got some graphs here from a Royal Society study from a few years ago. And it shows over time, the number of people collaborating on papers has steadily been growing. But the other interesting thing they found, which is perhaps not surprising, is that the papers with more international co-authors tend to get picked up more in the literature. Which isn't that surprising, because if you think the more people who've been involved in writing a paper, the more people there are to go to conferences to talk about it and sort of share that research. So collaboration can be very beneficial and can be very helpful. But on the other hand, collaboration can be quite frustrating. So if any of you have ever worked on writing up a paper or a group project, you know that you end up with multiple versions of the same document. We've all got, I think, a folder on our computer with many copies of the same file with different numbers and letters after it. And you get long email chains passing information around and passing the files around. Formatting and typesetting can be a bit of a nightmare. Maintaining references, especially if it's a big project with lots of citations, can be very difficult. And you just end up with really long revision cycles. And this, in a lot of ways, was the motivation for Overleaf, and that we were finding it really hard to collaborate on our research papers. So Overleaf makes collaboration easy. It's a collaborative writing tool in the browser. It's much like Google Docs, but it's based on LaTeX, so you get the nice typeset version of your paper available straight away. And the nice thing is you don't actually need to know very much LaTeX to get started. So we've seen a lot of adoption with students and people new to academia and new to academic writing who are using Overleaf as their first encounter with LaTeX and picking it up as they go and doing lots of great stuff with it. And we have grown really quickly. So Overleaf's always been, I think, designed for users. I mean, we built it because we were having problems collaborating, and we've always grown through the user base growing. We hit 5 million users towards the end of last year, and then added another 1 million registered users in the first half of this year. And actually, it's been a pretty difficult year in many ways for a lot of people. I don't think anyone expected 2020 to turn out this way. But the nice thing about Overleaf is that we are trying to help support remote learning and remote teaching and remote collaboration even more so now, with all the changes that have happened around the world to account for the coronavirus pandemic. So we've been growing really rapidly, and I think actually it puts us in a good position to help out and to try and help make education and teaching a bit easier in a remote environment. So Overleaf is really easy to get started. So if you're one of the people who have never heard of Overleaf before, you've never even heard of LaTeX, you can get started really easily, either by diving in with a template, so picking an example of a project that looks a bit like something you'd want to produce, whether that's a research paper, a dissertation, a formal letter, a CV, a presentation, a poster. There's thousands of different templates. And this is a great way to get started, is to choose one that looks like what you're aiming for. And then you can start to add your content. And we do also have a Learn wiki, which has got lots of good information, both on how to get started with LaTeX, but then also how to use Overleaf and how to use the different features in Overleaf. And if you are very new to it, there is a Learn LaTeX in 30 minutes guide, which aims to give you a very, very quick run through of how to get to your first sort of structured document in a short space of time. Again, if you've never used Overleaf, this is a bit of what it looks like in the editor. So you write in the central pane, you can add files and things on the left if you need to. And on the right-hand side, you see a preview of what your typeset document will look like. So here I've picked a journal template, which follows, I guess, the traditional sort of 2-column format. But as you're writing, you can just write in a much simpler view, and you don't have to worry about that formatting as you're going. You may also notice that there's not, it doesn't actually look like LaTeX in the middle there. It just looks like a normal word processor. And we do have this rich text mode, which you can see in the toggle at the top. The rich text mode is in beta, so it is still a work in progress, but it makes it easier if you're more familiar with things like Word or the WYSIWYG editors. If you do know LaTeX and you like to write in LaTeX, you can switch to source mode and you get the full power of LaTeX there. And we also have lots of things like commenting and review features available, and everything you kind of need to do to collaborate when writing your paper. There's also there's a lot of people that use it, and there's a lot of people that tweet about using it for different projects. There's a lot of people that use it for their thesis, used it while they're at grad school, while they're at university, and then other people using it in academia and industry. And what this does mean is there is also a really nice community of people out there who both submit some of the templates we see in our gallery, but also are very helpful on things like Stack Exchange and other places. So if you do get stuck and you do have a question, there's lots of ways of finding some help. I just want to add that Overleaf is kind of designed to try and fit into different workflows, because not everyone works in the same way. So one simple example is there are a lot of different spell check languages in there. There's also a few different ways of working offline with your documents. So you can sync via Dropbox, via Git, or via GitHub. And this is quite nice because it means that if you do prefer to work in a local LaTeX editor, you can do that, and then you can sync to an Overleaf project via Git or via GitHub. And then someone else who prefers to work in the browser can collaborate with you. And so we accommodate these different types of workflows in that kind of way. And you can access all of these options via the Overleaf menu and the top left of the editor. Speaking of workflows, we also work quite a lot with publishers in trying to make it easier to submit research papers to journals and repositories and preprint servers. And we work with different publishers in different ways. With some, it's about setting up a new template and making sure the template's easy to use. In other cases, it's trying to provide a streamlined submission path through so that it reduces the number of steps you have to go through. So again, these vary by publisher, but generally what we're trying to do is help make it easier for authors to write and then submit their papers to journals. And again, I'm not going to go into this too much because it's a 20-minute slot. But if you want to know more about this, do get in touch with us afterwards. We also, if you're interested in new features or sort of hearing how to use Overleaf, how to use different parts of Overleaf in different ways, we release new blog posts with new features when they come out. And we also have a series of webinars that will help you, whether you're new to Overleaf, whether you're looking at using it in a specific situation. We've actually got one coming up next week with Eric, who wrote that Creating the Art of Strategy book on Overleaf. And so they're quite good ways to sort of, if you'd like to keep in touch with what's happening and what's new, those are a couple of different ways you can do it. So I've kind of raced through the product from the author perspective and very lightly touched on the publisher integrations. I just wanted to spend sort of 5 minutes or so talking about how we work with institutions. And so Overleaf is used by students and staff at a huge number of universities and institutions around the world. Both people who are using it on the free plan, people who are using it in groups and sort of in departments. Then also we have quite a lot of these site licenses now where the premium version of Overleaf is made available to everyone at that university. Stanford University was our first institutional partner, and we worked with them in 2014, and they launched in 2015. And they saw a huge increase in usage in the first year they adopted the institutional solution. And the nice thing is that it's not something that has to be pushed out sort of top down from the library. Actually, it's something that the students themselves pick up and share. And because there's the natural benefit for the user is if they sign up for Overleaf and they see that they get a free upgrade if they join the institutional license, they're motivated to do that and they join the license themselves. And it means that there isn't a huge amount of sort of admin that's needed for the librarian to roll this out. It's a very, very simple process. But what the librarian does get is the ability to sort of see where that uptake is happening, which departments are using Overleaf, and what types of user, whether it's mainly the staff or mainly the students or a mixture of both. And what that helps the university do is plan training sessions or plan where to, find out about new and interesting usage. And one example from Stanford was that Helen saw that there was some usage in the medical sciences department and hadn't realized that they were using LaTeX and using Overleaf, and so was able to talk with the librarians there and arrange some training sessions and sort of information sharing sessions, which was really helpful for both parties. And the metrics are updated daily, so you can sort of see a day-to-day usage or weekly or monthly. Picking another university now who sort of adopted Overleaf for a slightly different reason. Purdue University, their graduate school, had found that students who used LaTeX or Overleaf to write their theses typically required a lot fewer meetings to sort out the formatting issues. So once you've submitted your thesis, often you have to go through some formatting back and forth with the graduate school in order to make sure that it's all in the required format and everything's there and present and everything's needed. And they found that if people used other tools, they maybe needed 5 or more graduate staff student meetings per thesis, but they could reduce this down to 2 or 3 if the students use LaTeX or Overleaf. So when you add up, all of those meetings over the year, they saved about 1,000 meetings, and that's a huge time save for them and makes the, promoting Overleaf to their students and staff worthwhile, even if just solely for that particular use case. I'm not going to dwell too much on this here because there's more detail online, but we do have cloud and on-premise options available. So if you're doing a lot of external collaboration, the cloud-based service makes most sense. But for some places where you need to run things within your own firewall or on your own internal server, we have a locally installed version that you can run as well. And then finally, because I'm trying to rush through all of this as quickly as possible to see if there's any questions, I'm going to leave this up here. Hopefully some of you recognize what this is. There is a big clue at the bottom. This is actually the LHC. This is the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, which I was fortunate enough to go and visit a year or so ago. And the reason this is there is because CERN, as many of you know, is a hugely collaborative organization. They work on massive research projects. They have physics papers with more than 5,000 authors because everyone who's involved in an experiment is part of that write-up and part of that research, and so gets credited on the research papers. And they also have thousands of people connecting into their servers using the LHC data for various research projects and various experiments. And this is just a snapshot from one of their videos kind of showing how widespread the collaboration is at CERN. And a few years ago, they were looking to adopt an authoring tool for their researchers and looking at which would make sense. And they did a year-long trial of 3 platforms, and perhaps unsurprisingly, because I'm talking about it now, Overleaf emerged as the best fit. And it was really nice. It was a really long trial. We got quite involved with the different participants writing different papers and doing different things with Overleaf. And it was a really it was actually quite a collaborative process during the trial. And it was really nice that they preferred Overleaf and found that it was the best solution for them. So Overleaf was rolled out at CERN. Again, like with Stanford, the usage in the first year grew immensely, and it's now used, I think, maybe more than 4,000 CERN members across many different departments and many different specialties. And so there is a case study online if people are interested to take a look at. This is a quick screenshot of the portal on Overleaf, and this is an example of one of their templates that they could load in just to sort of show how it looks. And then also, if you are interested, Patrick, who took part in that case study, also took part in one of the earlier sessions this week. So that was hosted by my colleague, Marianne. So if you're interested in finding out a bit more about how CERN use Overleaf, and also Purdue, who are also on that call, on that session, you can log in and see that session there. The recording's available. That's been a whistle-stop tour. Thanks for listening. I hope you learned something new or found something interesting. You can reach me at john@overleaf.com, or just check out the website for more information. I will now stop sharing and just see if there's any questions from anyone. I can see 2 questions here. So, going to pick up the first question. So Overleaf is easy to use once you get into it, but when introducing it to researchers in East and Southeast Asia, there's a bit of hesitancy due to the English language interface. What localization options are available, and what localized translated options are available for the Learn Wiki documentation? So that's a great question. So you do have options to view the interface in different languages. So if you're on overleaf.com and you look in the footer, in the very bottom left of the footer, you can see a language toggle, and you can choose from about 12, I think, or more different localizations. So it's not fully comprehensive, but we do have some local translations of the site. And in terms of translated options for the Learn Wiki, that's something we're looking into. We have a small number of pages that are translated into other languages, but I would encourage someone to get in touch if there are specific Learn Wiki pages that would be particularly of interest, and it's always good to find out exactly what people would find useful, because there are quite a lot of other local language blogs and community sites that provide a lot of information as well. So it's good to know what's missing. Someone has asked, will track changes be available in rich text mode? We are working on this. It's taken longer than we expected because we're making some other updates to the editor, but we are intending to bring it to rich text mode as soon as we can. I can't give a date, I'm afraid, but I always like when that gets brought up because it helps keep it at the top of the priority list. And then, do you have plugins for manuscript submission systems such as BenchPress and Editorial Manager? So we have submission links with Editorial Manager, with ScholarOne and EJP, and a few custom systems like F1000 Research and the sites they support. We don't have one with BenchPress at the moment, but for all the ones that we don't, we do provide a simple way for you to download either a PDF or the zip files that you need so that you can take it to the submission site and submit normally. And again, if there is interest in more integrations, we're always interested in finding out more about those. It does depend a bit on what's available in terms of APIs and what we can do, but yeah, please get in touch if there's a specific integration we're missing. And I think I'm now, that's out of questions. It's 20 past. So I think if you stick on, or well, if you stick around, there's going to be Mark Hannell talking about Figshare. And I also just want to say there's a networking session later on tonight. It starts at 6 p.m. UK time till about 7:30. And in the chat window, there it is, someone has posted the link to the Remo website where you can join in a bit of networking later on today. So thanks again. Hope you all found that useful, and stick around to listen to Mark from Figshare. Thanks.